In today's episode, I'm chatting with Vanessa Joy, and we are going to talk about all things business, specifically working in your business versus on your business. And we're going to talk about why most photographers struggle with marketing and, of course, how to fix it. And really, we're just deep diving into a full-on geek out on business stuff. So if you're running a photography business, you're going to want to take a listen. Stay tuned. I'm Nicole Begley, a zoological animal trainer turned pet and family photographer. Back in 2010, I embarked on my own adventure in photography, transforming a bootstrapping startup into a thriving six-figure business by 2012. Since then, my mission has been to empower photographers like you, sharing the knowledge and strategies that have helped me help thousands of photographers build their own profitable businesses. I believe that achieving $2,000 to $3,000 sales is your fastest route to six-figure businesses, that any technically proficient photographer can consistently hit four-figure sales, and no matter if you want photography to be your full-time passion or a part-time pursuit, profitability is possible. If you're a portrait photographer aspiring to craft a business that aligns perfectly with the life you envision, then you're in exactly the right place. With over 350,000 downloads, welcome to the Freedom Focus Photography Podcast. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Freedom Focus Photography Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Begley, and today I have Vanessa Joy joining me here on the podcast, and we are just going to geek out on all things business and work-life balance and choosing clients and really wherever this conversation may take us. So buckle up. Hello, Vanessa. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. And I love that we're going to geek out because the truth is, I always tell people I like photography, but I love business.
Same. Percent same. Speaking of business, go ahead and tell us how long you've been in business, what you shoot, like kind of your background, your business story, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I have been a photographer for the past 24, 25 years, maybe. I have to think about how old I am every time I make that claim. So I now do a ballpark, but it's been a while. My mother was a photographer, which meant I rebelled and I didn't like it, of course, to begin with, but I fell in love with photography in the darkroom. I took a black and white film photography class in high school and did not look back. I mean, I thought I had to have a real job at one point, so I did become a Spanish teacher and did photography on the side, but thankfully was able to leave that in under 3 years. So every year around August, September, I get so happy that I don't have to go back to school.
Oh my gosh. I do like to say that I am completely unemployable now after like being my own boss now for 15 years. I'm like, oh yeah, no, I could never go to a job.
No, thank you. That was a horrible experience. You know, it took me a while actually, and maybe I'm curious if this happened to you. I had like business clothes, right? Like my teacher clothes, my corporate clothes. It took me like a good 7 years to throw them away.
Because I never had any corporate clothes because my job prior, I spent 13 years as a zoological animal trainer. So I had like a lot of khaki pants and like Merrill shoes.
Okay. Yeah, I had my khaki pants, but also like dress pants and blouses. I'm ironically wearing like the one blouse I own now. But I kept them and I would look at them in my closet every time. I wanted to clear it out and be like, oh, but what if I have to? What if that nightmare that I recurringly have comes true and I have to go teach again?
Oh, that is funny. And it does take, that's actually a good starting point too, because I feel like that's a very common path on entrepreneurship where you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to do the thing. And then you start to do it and you're like, oh, this is amazing. And then you get some traction. And then when you think that you've like reached the goals you've been looking forward to, a whole new set of worry comes in of like, oh my gosh, now I have to do this again. Now I have to keep this. Can I continue doing this? And I would say, well, based on my subconscious, it took about 10 years for me to be like, I'm good now. Because I used to have a reoccurring dream that I would go back to the aviary, which was my last job. I worked there for about 7 years before I left the zoo world and started my own business. And I used to have a recurring dream that I would go back there and I was working, but I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. So I would just like go around trying to look busy, like trying to figure out who I could help or what I could do. And it was really stressful. And I had that, probably at least like 8 times a year, like probably maybe monthly. And then maybe about 6 years ago or so I've been in business at that point, almost 10 years, I had a dream that I quit. Like in my dream, I quit my job. I turned in my keys And now when I have that kind of reoccurring dream, which is way less often, I'm going back and visiting the people that are still working there.
Oh yes, I do the exact same thing where I'm visiting people and I'm like, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm just helping out. But it's kind of good that like you got to a place of content, because I think the people that love business and like the business owners in general, we almost have the inability to be content. Like when
Mm-hmm.
we reach whatever said goal, you said there's another set of worries, but which is true, but also there's like, okay, when you get to here, now we take it to the next level. Now it's like, okay, what monetary goal, because I can't stay here at this goal, right? Because I already did that. So now I got to go bigger, go higher, get more clients, make more money. And it's like this vicious cycle of the
Yes.
inability to be content.
Yeah, moving the goalposts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a whole different set of issues. I think we all are guilty of that too. And also guilty of not slowing down and celebrating the wins as we get
Yes.
them along
So
the
true.
way. Yeah,
So true.
so you've heard it here first, guys. Go
Yep.
celebrate your wins.
Celebrate the wins. I don't care how you do it. Take a minute, celebrate them.
Yeah, yeah. So you, like me, got into this business mostly because I loved business and I really liked photography. I think there's a lot of people out there. There's obviously a lot of creatives that are in it for like the photography first and
Mm-hmm.
maybe have a little bit of a harder time with the business piece. And then there's people with the business that are business first and just decided that photography was the business choice for them.
Right.
So in your experience, do you see kind of those two people approaching business differently? Do you have advice for especially the more kind of creative forward people that maybe struggle a little bit with business, like how to tame this business beast?
It's funny. I didn't even think about, and I know it happens, but I didn't even think so much about the people who are like, okay, I'd like to go work for myself. What should I do? I guess I'll do photography, because so many of us, a camera got put in our hands at some point and we just fell in love.
Yeah.
And that creative side, and that's what it was for me, even though I actually do like business and marketing more than I like photography. Even for me, I did fall in love with photography first. And so most of us are in that boat. If you are
Yeah.
a creative and you're like, I love this, holding the camera thing, but I hate the holding the mouse thing. And I would like to figure out how to do less of that. I feel like that is the majority of people. So the biggest thing, it's a mindset shift from I'm a photographer to I'm CEO. And you're going to be a CEO of your own business. So you have to make that mindset shift, and it doesn't have to be at the cost of your creativity. It doesn't have to be at the cost of holding a camera more. It just has to benefit you in a way where you look at your business as a whole and understand that there are systems and processes that you can put in place to make it the business that you actually want. But you have to analyze it like a business person, like a CEO first.
Okay. Yeah. What does that look like? Like, what could they be looking at and asking themselves?
I mean, I'd like to break it up into pathways when it comes to photography. Photography aside, so not
Mm-hmm.
photography education, I look
Yeah.
at the business. I like to look at CEO strategy, which would be everything from how do I run my accounting to what does my client experience look like? Do I hire people? Do I use freelance contractors? How do I scale? That's all CEO strategy. And then I'd like to look at profit plans separately as a separate sort of pillar. And
Mm-hmm.
that is, how am I making money? Am I making money? Actually, is probably a good question. Am I making money? What do my numbers look like? How can I project income instead of guessing, what I'm going to make this year? And then the last pillar would be marketing momentum. What am I doing to get myself out there? How am I getting leads? How am I maximizing the things that are working and then cutting loose the things that are not working?
Mm-hmm.
So I break it up a little bit. I think maybe I'm very compartmentalized that way, but I think it helps, especially for people who are naturally creatives in general. We do tend to look at big picture, but in a negative way where it's like, oh my God, all these things. So when I kind of break it into like those three pillars, CEO strategy, marketing momentum, and profit plan, I think it helps a little bit.
Yeah, no, I can see that for sure. I think marketing is definitely one of the areas where a lot of people, what's the word I'm looking for, struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people that I end up talking to, and they're maybe, not getting the leads in their business, not getting the inquiries. And I ask them what they're doing for marketing, and they're like, well, I'm posting on social,
Yeah.
which, especially now, like back in Gosh, even when I started in 2010, like Facebook was still the place. Remember, you would like post a
Yes.
picture and tag your client, and then all their friends saw it, and you're like, this is my marketing plan.
Yes, yes, and it worked, and it still works, but you have to throw a lot more spaghetti at the wall in
Uh-huh.
order to get to something to stick. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it has to be more than just social media posting. And even if you are posting on social media, you have to do it correctly. Like there are
Yeah.
a lot of nuances, there are correct ways to do it, and then ultimately streamline it, because the last thing you need is to be living on Instagram where we all doom scroll and fall into some black hole of improductivity and then you're stuck, and then you may have found a client or two, but you've wasted the whole day.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. If you struggle with that, because I think a lot of photographers do, especially now that Instagram is not the only thing, but also
Mhm.
Instagram, used to be so photo heavy and it's not
Mhm.
anymore. If you go to my Instagram, which is at Vanessa Joy, VANESSAJOY, Vanessa Joy, and then just message me the words Insta tips, 2 words, no hyphen in between, INSTA space TIPS, Insta tips. I have a whole PDF that it's not fluffy. It's like, no, you do this. When you post, you do this. How you set up automated replies, like the one you'll receive when you actually
Yeah.
DM me that. Like, here's how you do that.
Oh, nice.
It's very, very tangible information that is up to date that will help anyone struggling in that area.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah, because I think a lot of people that I talk to, they're just completely overwhelmed by it. And,
It's a lot.
a lot of, especially I have a lot of pet photographers in my audience. And, by and large, pet photographers are more on the introvert side of things. We're like, well, we love animals. I
Yeah,
want to
just not
photograph the
people.
dogs, but I don't want to have to market to people. But
Mm-hmm.
alas, we do need to do that. Yeah, I always talk about social media really as kind of, for me, it's the icing on my marketing cake. So
Yes.
that it's a great thing to still be doing. You know, really a lot of people that are really struggle with it. I believe that you don't even need to do Instagram, that you could potentially have like all your other marketing things like focus on
Mm.
more, business marketing,
Like
talking to
what?
people
I'm
in the
actually
market.
curious. Like, what's your marketing plan
Yeah.
that, like,
Okay,
your
sure.
well-rounded one? Yeah,
Yeah,
go.
I love charitable marketing. That's actually how I grew my business.
Okay.
Social media, even back in the heyday, was never like my main thing. I did get some clients back when it was easier for people to see your work. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
funny now you have a Facebook business page, and like, when's the last time you saw something a business posted on Facebook in your feed?
That wasn't automated from somewhere else.
Yeah, that wasn't paid,
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, gosh, forever. Anyway, so I built my business with a lot of charitable marketing. So partnering with rescues or charities in my
Mm.
area and offering special sessions. They were full sessions to their supporters, that they
Okay.
got a little bit of a bonus, either a value add or a little discounted session fee, and then part of that session fee would be a donation back to the charity.
Ooh,
So it was like a triple win, right? The charity made some
fun.
money. The supporters automatically loved me because I was supporting something they cared about, and
Yep.
I got full paying clients on my calendar. So that
Right.
is,
From referrals or
yeah,
from,
from
okay,
them. So basically the charity would market my sessions to their supporters.
got
So
it.
it's like, yeah, you don't even need a list. You can grow kind of your list and get that way. And
Yeah.
so
And
yeah, it
then
was
I
really,
imagine you do a stellar job serving everyone that comes in and they all tell their friends and all that.
yeah, and they could go through, like, if you were doing it as a full service type thing, like a full session. I mean, they're getting the full experience. You're doing your full client inquiry experience with them, so
Mm-hmm.
you're letting them know what the price points are. Like, they're regular clients when they come through the door,
Right.
and it was regular session averages, which was fantastic. Yeah, and then the other piece of charitable marketing was the silent auctions,
Mm-hmm.
which I would donate to silent auctions, and I would say about 50 to 60% would actually do it. Like 40%, 50 to 40 to 50% just would never claim them.
Yeah. It's like a
And
gift
then,
card. There's
yeah,
just billions of dollars of gift cards around that no one uses.
yeah, right, exactly. And so, yeah, it's like people get upset about it. I'm like, well, the charity made money. Like, you didn't,
Yeah, that was the
but it didn't
point.
cost us anything to do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
whatever,
it's
it's fine.
free advertising. But then the
Yeah.
people that did, so I assume you include XYZ in the session,
Hmm.
but then they could purchase extra stuff. Is that the idea?
Yeah. So I would always do like a $500 artwork or album credit. So they
Okay.
couldn't come in and just buy prints. I wanted them, and I didn't do like one particular, like a 16 by 24 canvas, because I wanted them coming into the session being like, oh, I'm going to buy artwork or an album, not like, oh, I'm going to
Ooh,
get an 8 by 10 print, or I'm going to get a 16 by 24 canvas. Like I
love
wanted
that.
me to be able to paint the possibility when we started to talk about the session of what they would purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And
And
that
then they
worked
have
really
$500 towards it. The
exactly.
vocabulary is
Exactly.
key.
Yep. Yeah. And I would always say too, like, you need to be at the point in your business where your business can afford, like if somebody came in and just did that and like got like an 11 by 14 canvas or something, that you could pay for that,
Mm-hmm.
and just know that that's a risk of that.
Right.
I would say of all the people though that claimed the gift certificate, maybe 10% had a under $1,000 sale. So like either
Okay.
just took the freebie and a little bit of an add-on, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe it wasn't a great sale of
Yeah.
my usual average, which is the time was about $3,000. But
But the people that
yeah.
are typically at places that do silent auctions
Mhm.
are usually more on the affluent side.
Yes.
So I can see how that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I would say 80 to 90% of them. I would say 80% probably were about my session average, and the other 10% were like outliers in the biggest sale direction. Like all of my biggest sales in my first 6-7 years of business came from those silent auction
Oh, amazing.
donations.
I
So
love that. And
yeah.
then on top of it, those donations are tax deductible, assuming
Hmm.
the organization is
Yep.
registered that way. So you have a tax deduction on top of new clients, on top
Yep.
of a sale. This is the kind of like, not that it's total guerrilla marketing, but the kind of unique type of marketing that a lot of photographers really need to think more about.
Yep. What were some of your favorite marketing strategies growing your business?
I like everything. I like throwing as much as I can and casting a wide net because my primary client to start with were wedding people.
Hmm.
So I would use a lot on Facebook. And then as I grew, that wouldn't necessarily hit the target market because my price grew. And then, I was kind of above the bell curve of the typical amount that people spend. And, now my market is very few people. And I
Hmm.
have to work a lot harder to get those few people that are going to spend like a top 1% on luxury wedding photography. So it changed. And that's part of the fun, right, of marketing is that sometimes things work when you're here in your business, but then a few years later when you've evolved, they don't work anymore.
Hmm.
So I had to change. And that really is part of the fun for me is to see like what is going to work, measure how well it works, and then come up with new ideas. So right now, at least for the wedding side, a lot of it is on the venue and planner and
Hmm.
just building relationships. I will say the one thing that's never changed the entire time is relationships are always the number one ROI that I get. It's also the number one hardest thing because it's a long game. It's not a
Hmm.
short game. It's not like, okay, I'm going to run some ads and I can, in 2 weeks, measure my ROI. How much did I spend? How much did I make? No. In relationships, you spend a lot in time, potentially money if you're paying, to get into rooms with certain people, whether it's to go to conferences, to go to these charity events and actually attend. But it's a lot of time, a lot of effort. And then sometimes it pays off in the long run. But when it does, it's on repeat. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
a lot, the relationships, but it works.
Yeah, no, I agree. The number one thing throughout all the years, no matter what level of business, is yeah, human interaction,
Mm-hmm. So
relationships,
true.
knowing people, and yeah, and getting. And I hear a lot of excuses, doubts of
Mm-hmm.
people. They're like, well, I don't know anyone in my market, or I just moved to a new city. It's like, well, get out and start meeting people then. I think it's so
Yeah.
important as photographers that we get out from behind the computer and
Yes.
integrate into our community and start meeting people. And there's just so many different ways that can look like. You can go to like networking events, like a BNI type thing. Some are better than others. You
Mm-hmm.
can work with charities like I just mentioned. You can do something fun with other businesses. Like
Yeah.
if I was new in a market, I would go out and say, all right, who's my target client? What age are they? What do they like to do? Like what kind of businesses would they maybe be taking their dog to? Or what businesses would they be frequenting with their kids? And Like, all right, let's create a little like digital PDF magazine of the best dog resources, the best like places for elementary school kids in whatever city you're in. And like, go talk to those clients and say, I'm putting this together. I'd like to interview you.
I love
And put
that.
there, it's
Yeah.
free marketing, and then they can spread it around. You can spread it around. Like it's it's an opt-in, and just you create then these relationships with people, and
Mm-hmm.
then they are willing to help you. Once they know, like, and trust you, you can offer them a free session so they can experience it, and then they might help you promote different sessions and things that you might have. There's just so many ways,
There are
yeah, that
so many opportunities. And then also the thing is why most photographers don't try them is because it does take a lot of time and it
Mhm.
is outside of our comfort zone.
Yes.
I mean, we don't like people, right? We like pets.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
And
me
even the most
personally, but
extroverted person is still gonna be concerned of rejection.
yes,
So,
yes.
yeah. But yeah, we gotta do it anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, even something like that where you're getting it's twofold what you were mentioning
Mhm,
because you are creating the relationship because you found a way to serve someone and that's amazing. But then you also have your marketing material potentially in their store.
mhm.
So you have that, but it's too traffic. But even so, let's take just for fun, let's
Uh-huh.
take that relationship building. So you move to a new place, right? You start to do that. You do that with one, well, let's just say you do one magazine total. Maybe you're going to have 5 different people that you're going to interview.
Mhm.
I think even getting like driving to all these places, first researching it, like who
Yeah.
are these people? That's going to take you a week. Then driving to all these places and asking people to be a part of it, that's going to take another week at least if you're like stacking your schedule. And then you're going to interview them. That'll take another week, design everything. That'll take another week. So that's like a month and we haven't even printed anything yet. So then you maybe print it. That'll take, I don't know, 3 weeks, hand deliver it to everyone. That'll take another week. And then you can start offering the sessions, which, will take, we're at 2 months right
Yeah.
now. That'll take another, like, so we're talking like 6 months probably before you even can create, like, can even potentially get a return on investment for all this time.
Mhm.
So it's a lot. And that is why so many people don't do it. They're like, maybe I'll
Right,
just
right.
hold my camera instead. And I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, but that those a lot of times I think, so much of what we do is thought driven. So we have a thought, maybe where, they might reject us, so I'm not going to do it. So like, can we kind of switch our thoughts around, our mindset of what is beneficial? And yeah, okay, maybe there's times where you need to do something a little bit more, like, I need to do some mini sessions, I need to do something, I need to make some money like now. I don't
Mm-hmm.
have time to do all this like legwork. But like that old Chinese Japanese proverb of like the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, the second
Yes.
best time is now.
Now.
So if you're not already doing those things, like, start, because as you go on, they do become, for you and me and so many other people, they become the biggest bang for your buck in terms of your marketing strategy long term.
They
So
do.
yeah, like, you're laying that groundwork, and it just takes time for that tree to grow and the fruit to ripen and be able to grab that harvest. But once you do, I mean, it just continues to give and give and give and grows exponentially. And then it's a little bit easier.
Yeah, yeah. It does hit a tipping point at some
Yeah.
level. And then
Um,
you're like, "Oh, how do I do more of this?"
yeah, for sure. I want to talk about a little bit too of the process of growing our business, right? So we start growing, maybe we start to get some momentum, but there's a time where we're just like, oh, I need to take anybody that I can serve. Like, yes, okay, I'm
Mm.
going to serve this client. And I'm sure you have stories, because I know I have stories where like a little red flag might come up with the client that
Mhm.
is inquiring, and you're like, oh, there's a red flag, but I
I
mean, I
need to
could
pay
really
my
use
bills.
another $3,000 right now. So, okay,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yes. Oh, man. And I can't say I don't think, and I'm trying to like be authentic about this, but for the most part, I'm going to say 95% of any time I have ever had a customer complaint,
Mhm.
it was from a client that I had red flags about earlier. Like I saw it coming. Very rarely have I ever had a complaint that like came out of the blue. I
Mhm.
wasn't expecting it. Obviously, if myself or my staff did something wrong, that obviously I'm not
You're right, of
not
course.
not just thinking I'm going to get the complaint. I'm anticipating it. I'm getting ahead of it. But for like the ones that came out of the blue, they all had those red flags.
Uh-huh. every single one. Or it's something that you like, at least for me, I've been a policy for that. I'm like, oh, right, that's why I had that policy.
Yes. Or you make one like, and we'll be adding a clause to the contract.
Yep. Do you have any advice for people that maybe see those red flags and maybe have a hard time like
Telling them to go
them?
away. Well, you know what I think is the holdup? First of all, as a business owner, you absolutely have the right to refuse business. You don't have the right to discriminate, but you have the right to refuse business.
Mhm.
And it's not as difficult as some people make it seem to be. So for wedding photography, for example, a lot of people are like, well, if I said I have the date available and they want to book me, then I have to work with them. And the truth is like, no. And you don't have to come at them. And that's the second misconception is you don't have to come at them and be like, I don't want to work with you. Okay, bye. Like it doesn't have to be like that. A way to phrase it, and I did this just recently, and it wasn't with a red flag client. Like I would have happily photographed this wedding, but someone came to me and it was a South Asian, Indian fusion wedding, Indian American wedding.
Mhm.
And I would have taken it in a heartbeat. I loved the girl. There were no red flags. Talking to the bride, like totally fine. However, in my area, there is a photographer that is a friend of mine who her flat out specialty is Indian American fusion weddings. Like that is her specialty. That's what she does all the time. So I said to her, I'm like, look, I would love to photograph your wedding, but I feel like I'm being dishonest in some kind of way if I don't make you aware of this other photographer that's in the area that specializes in it. And she actually did end up booking that photographer. So I kind of gave that job away. But if you were purposefully saw red flags, you just phrase it the exact same way. Like, hey, I know I do a great job at your wedding, but to be honest, I really think that this other photographer, which you may not have known about, I really do think they'd be a better fit for you because XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
And you just refer them elsewhere in a very genuine, honest kind of way. Granted, like don't refer crazy people to your friends like that. Don't do that. but it can just be as simple as like, look, like I'd have an awesome job, like an awesome time photographing you, but I really think you're going to be a lot happier with this photographer, this other photographer, and just send them.
Yep. Well, this actually brings up two thoughts. Number one is the an abundance mindset of being able to refer a job out and just knowing that, like, by knowing the other photographers in your market and being friends even with some of them, that like you can refer to them, they can refer to you, that it becomes this whole big extra referral game. And not even just for weddings. Obviously it's like, oh, I can only photograph one wedding that day, but portraits, like we don't have a date specific, so usually we can slot a few more in. But I think it's really important for portrait photographers and wedding photographers to really embrace that belief that there's, if I refer a better client to a better fit, like there's going to be another client coming for me that's going to be the right fit for me.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And you're strengthening your relationship, which ultimately is a better goal, because the relationships you have, especially with other photographers, or if you're doing, weddings, other vendors, even portrait sessions, other vendors, those are really very valuable repeat clients.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that conversation just brought up to me too was the importance of specialization. I mean, there's a wedding photographer near you that specializes in Indian American fusion weddings. It's like in the past, I'm thinking even when I started the industry, it was enough to specialize in like families or newborn or high school seniors or wedding or pets. But now so many of those genres even have more specialization within the genre, which can really help you just attract like exactly what it is you want to shoot. Do you have any thoughts on kind of that specialization?
I mean, it's only going to help things like search engine optimization when you can really hone in on that specialty. It actually makes it easier in a lot of ways because you're going to stand out for those people specifically. It's funny. I just spoke at a conference and I was speaking on the Canon stage about the concept of never niching down. So I don't want to be people who like see me there and hear me here. Let me just clarify. I think as a photographer, you can go and expand to as many different genres of photography as you want to. However, when it comes to your marketing, niching down is easily one of the best things that you can do. In a broad sense, someone who's looking for pet photography or newborn photography does not want to see my wedding photography images. So I'm not going to create a website that has all that on there. Like you do have to separate it and probably separate your Instagram and things like that. But niching down specifically in your marketing, you're going to get the people you really enjoy working with. And part of that is not just saying, okay, I would like to photograph, I don't know, golden doodles only, like doodle photography only. It could be, right? Because I'm sure people search that doodle photography.
There are plenty of doodles.
Yes. And there are plenty of doodles around there. So it doesn't even have to be that specific, but it's going to help you when you find your brand voice too, like the type of client that you want to work with.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking too, just even from pet owners, like a lot of people, and when I started, I was guilty of that too. Like, oh, okay, so my target client is anyone with a dog. Okay.
Yeah.
No.
And money.
Yeah. The person that has their dog like living in the backyard that's not part of the family is not going to be spending money for pictures of that dog. Like the dog that I photograph is part of like the family. And, a loved pet that's sleeping on the bed. And, and then even more from that, though, you can start to get into, all right, do I want to photograph like the little tiny kind of toy breeds that are wearing pearls and jackets? Or am I like more like, let's get your Australian Shepherd and get out into the woods? Like, even those kinds of things, like you can speak to those types of different owners very differently, and they would be attracted to very different pet photographers. So yeah, it's really about digging into like, who do you want to serve? What kind of images do you want to create? And really doubling down on that.
And because too, with any type of portrait client, you're looking at a long-term relationship, hopefully, right? You want them to keep coming back to you, whether you're photographing families and you get the family growing up, or you're photographing pets and, as the pet ages, they look very different, especially in those puppy year, I guess, 1 year of puppy. So those are repeat clients, which means you want to attract the people that you actually want to spend your life with, because potentially you are going to. When it comes to weddings, we don't have that type of repeat client. I mean, typically, but you do have a long relationship with them. Any wedding client that comes to the door is usually booking you on average a year in advance. But then even after the wedding, you're still working with them for another 3 months, hopefully not longer than 6 months, but depending on your workflow, it might be longer. So that's like a 2-year relationship. Like you want to work with the people you want to spend time with. And that's really important. For luxury weddings, I recently came to the realization in my business growth, right, of never being satisfied. I was like, okay, I want to get to the next level of luxury client. I want to be in Vogue. I want to be in People magazine, like level up. And I was talking to a business coach about this, and she was asking me like, Vanessa, just describe like what's going on in your business right now. I said to her, well, I'm booking the numbers I want. Like I am making a great amount of money per client. The people that I'm working with, I actually love and adore and have so much fun with them. Like I get to spend my weekend with these people and like, I love it. And then I'm just a little kind of disheartened because it's not the level of wedding, let's just say, whether it's style or floral or like that is that upper 1% of the 1% luxury that ends up in Martha Stewart magazine.
Yeah.
And she's like, Vanessa, you literally just explained to me that you have your ideal client that spends the money you want and you genuinely love them. Why would you want anything else? Like, and it was kind of like a bring me down to earth moment where I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's not worth sacrificing where I am right now, serving the client I want to serve and being really happy with it and making the money. It's not worth sacrificing that to get that upper luxury client that will land me in Vogue. Like the Vogue title is not going to replace like how happy I am with my clients.
Yeah, you're moving the goalposts.
Yeah, and not in a good way, I realized, which I have to thank her because she basically like saved me from that and realizing that. So pay attention to who you want your clients to be and what you want the quality of your life to look like, because who you let in the door will determine that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's really great advice. And I like to say too, whenever I'm teaching anyone with pricing, I always, because we can look at all these different things of like, oh, well, that's a good way to do it. Oh, I'm going to totally change my business. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'll go from packages to a la carte. Like I'm going to burn it all down.
Yeah.
And
God forbid we buy a new preset pack.
Yeah. Before we do that, I always like just to ask my clients too, it's in terms of pricing. Are you selling what you want to be selling? So meaning, do you want to sell artwork and are you selling artwork? Or are you selling all digital files, but you want to be selling artwork? Like, okay, if you're selling what you want to be selling, and are you making what you want to be making for your like revenue goals? And I guess add that third one, are you working with the types of people that you want to be working with? Like, if those three are yes, like your business is great. Like, don't feel like you need to change it and shift it, because the one thing I've learned in this 15 years is that everyone's business can look different. And there is no like must do it this way, because you can have profitable part-time, you can be profitable full-time, you can serve ultra luxury, you can serve kind of like a sweet spot, like, you know, boutique style. There's just so many opportunities. So I don't want anybody to be feeling like the grass is always greener, because
yeah. Well, it is always greener, but not for real.
It's just an illusion, everybody. It's just an illusion.
It's just spray paint.
Yes.
It's just a filter.
I love it. This is totally random, but have you ever like been driving by and you see a patch of bamboo and you look over, you're like, who clone stamped that?
Yeah.
It's like ridiculous. Photographer problems.
Yes, absolutely. I find myself staring at people. You ever do that? Like you stare at people or pets and you're just looking at light patterns on their face. But you realize like you're staring at someone awkwardly with your mouth open. Like, I'm sorry. I have to explain myself now.
I love that. Here's my card.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, no, when we moved into our house, we moved down here in 2018 and we built. So it was a new house and they had all LED bulbs in the house, which is great, except they had like a magenta cast. I'm like, my whole entire house is pink and I can't handle it.
What's like, you know, embedded rose-colored glasses.
Yeah. If people were like, I don't see that. I'm like, oh, well, it's very pink.
Yeah, trust
photographer problems.
Very much so.
Oh, anyway. All right. This has been an awesome conversation.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I guess, do you have any other kind of parting words of wisdom for all of our photographers out there in all of your years of business, kind of like the most important things to keep in mind?
I'm laughing because I'm trying not to say the most cliche thing that came to my mind first, because I feel like, you know, someone in front of the Miss America question, like, yes, world peace. So
that's right. The cliche is cliche for a reason. So you can start with that and then go with something not cliche.
Yeah. You know, world peace. But other than that, you know, since we've been talking about it a lot, what we've been talking about is working on your business instead of in your business. Mm-hmm. So my parting advice would be to make sure that you're spending time working on the things that are not necessarily making you money right now. Mm-hmm. Invest that time in your business, invest that money in your business. Sometimes you need that coach that you hire that's going to smack you in the face and tell you, Vanessa, stop reaching for things that are going to make you unhappy. But yeah, take time to invest in your business and work on your business.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Thanks so much. And before we go, let everybody know where they can find you.
VanessaJoy.com is probably the best place, aside from all of you who I hope have already messaged me on Instagram, those words, Insta tips. But VanessaJoy.com, when you go there, it's a splash page. You will see a link to my wedding website. You'll see a link to my portrait and corporate and resort photography that I do. No pets. I haven't gotten into that. But a lot of portraits and no kids. I usually run away screaming from children photography. But most importantly, for most of the people listening here, there is a For Photographers page. And I have so many freebies because I've been in this business for so long. You just go on that page, you'll find a ton of free stuff. There's paid stuff too, but you know, YouTube channel, podcast, all the goodies for free.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Vanessa, thank you so much for being here. And everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye.